Good evening. This is how it works. I get an email from somebody at the Marketing Society. In fact, it was Hugh, the first email, and it said, Steve, we'd really like to use your future Engage Deliver framework for the new manifesto. And I replied, I'm chuffed to bits. That's absolutely fantastic. I then get the second email which says, can you make this date in your diary? And I look at it and I think, yeah, I can make that date. So I'm thinking, oh, I'll come along to the evening, hear about the manifesto. I'll be sitting at the back with a glass of, hopefully, New Zealand Chardonnay until I get the next email, which is, hey, Steve, wouldn't mind a phone call to work out how you're going to run the evening. Thank you very much, Hugh. It gets worse. I then learn, by reading the detail of the emails, that there is a cost involved in you coming along tonight. So all I can say in welcoming Nigel, Gary and Anna, you're going to have to be bloody good to give these guys value for money.
Thanks for that.
Would you like to say hello and just say a few words of introduction? Who are you, where you're from? So we've got the full team ready.
Thank you very much, and I hope I'll make it worth your while, but I doubt it. I'm Nigel Gilbert. I'm the Chief Marketing and Communications Officer for TSB. My background is 10 years as a client and 25 years on the advertising agency side, and I'm having fun.
Good.
Hi, I'm Gary Twelvetree, and I'm Executive Director of Brand and Marketing at Visa Europe. Nigel is actually a client. Which not everybody realises that's the relationship between Visa and banks, but Nigel is a client. And prior to that, I was at a bank myself, so I was at Barclays and Barclaycard for some years.
And hello, I'm Anna Hill. God, it does feel like Mastermind or something. And
Yeah.
I am the Chief Marketing Officer for the Walt Disney Company for the UK and Ireland. And I've been at Disney for quite a long time now, 16 years, but it's changed an enormous amount, my job and Disney. We took Marvel on, we bought Lucas, Star Wars, and all sorts of things have happened. And prior to that, I was agency side.
Lovely, lovely. So also in turn, Steve Radcliffe, 42 years ago, God, that sounds a long time ago, I started at Procter & Gamble on Head and Shoulders and was immediately involved in the first commercial I was ever involved in making, which involved parting the hair down the middle and washing one half of the hair in Head and Shoulders. And one half in a mystery shampoo. Now I can reveal tonight the name of the mystery shampoo. It was Vosine. Oh. We picked Vosine. I don't know who makes it. It might be, the manufacturer might be in the room. We picked it because it didn't work. All Vosine did was smell medicinal and wash the big bits out. From Procter & Gamble, I then went agency side, like a couple of guys here. And then, as some of you know, I then became very big in tampons as the Tampax marketing director, and then became a CEO and so on and so on. But then for the last 25 years, I packed it all in, and for the last 25 years, I've been a partner to leaders trying to make a bigger difference with anybody qualifying as leader. The word actually can be dangerous and lead people astray or feel as though it's not them. So I've helped all sorts of people, from heads of the civil service and people running Boots and Unilever and First Direct, but more and more these days helping charities like the National Trust, NSPCC and so on. Just helping the people in those organisations be at their best more of the time and really make the difference they can. Along the way, again, through the help of Hugh, I was dragged in to help run the Marketing Society programme about 12 or 13 years ago. I did the first 10 years. And I had a fantastic time because I think it's a genuinely brilliant programme because it's a mix of leadership and looking at what muscles you need to build as a marketing leader, but also every day there was a top marketing director, at least one, sometimes two, would come and tell their story about their journey and what had worked and what hadn't worked and so on. So what happened was, after 10 years of doing this, I packed this in and I passed it to a colleague, this programme, and I thought, what's my major reflection on these marketing directors? And I didn't have the answer initially, But the question I asked was, what is it that's having these top marketing directors be top marketing directors? What are the distinguishing features? And I started first to see what the distinguishing features weren't. Because it wasn't as if they knew a lot more technical marketing than anybody else in the room. It wasn't that they were noticeably brighter than you or I. It wasn't that they'd come up through a particular line of education, which you might find more in, say, Whitehall and civil service. Not at all the case as a marketing director. And one of the energising things for everybody on the programme was that everybody who came forward, it was a different personality. It wasn't a certain Myers-Briggs profile and so on. So what was going on here? They were the characteristics that didn't distinguish them. My shorthand for what did distinguish them as top marketing directors was that they weren't just marketeers, they were marketing leaders. They were powerful in marketing, but had worked on upping their game and being powerful as leaders. And I want to help you explore that idea tonight. Encouragingly also, for some of you might be sitting there thinking, I'm pretty good on the marketing, I may not be great on the leadership side. I can tell you all of these people weren't initially great leaders or marketing leaders. They built their muscles, as I call them, over time. So what I'm going to do is walk you through some of the key ideas that are involved in being a strong marketing leader. In terms of how we're going to work, each time I introduce an idea, I'm going to turn to the three musketeers who will hopefully have a cracking story to tell us which brings the idea alive. Said this, the evening all depends on these three, I tell you. And hopefully bring that alive. But also then, I want to give you a chance tonight, time and opportunity to think about yourself and where you are now through the particular lenses that I think are involved as a marketing leader. I'll have some questions for you. I'm going to suggest that you stand up and just exercise yourselves when you're chatting in pairs. We've then got roving mics and we can hear back from you. Similarly, along the way, you might have questions on the topics we're covering for me or any of the trusty three. Okay? So that's where we are. Now, before we get into what I would say are the three major muscles that a marketing leader builds and flexes, I want to introduce you to a way I know you will be limiting yourself as a leader and limiting the difference you can make in the world. And the reason I'm saying that with confidence is because I've talked about this topic with tens of thousands of people, and I've yet to find the one person who would say, no, that's not me, doesn't apply to me. If you're here tonight, please step forward in a while, it'll be a pleasure to meet you. The way we limit ourselves at times, I'll show in this high-tech, using this high-tech equipment here, which I much prefer, good old flip chart. Here's the story of your career. In marketing, or whether you're a doctor or a teacher or an administrator or whatever, our first job is what I call to be an operator. Learn a skill, get stuff done, make things happen, follow things through. That's our job as operator. It sounds like a good piece of the story that everybody in this room got good at being an operator, which is why the organisation you were with at one point said, we now want to have you step forward and manage as well as being technically good. So here now you're handling budgets and resources and timetables and so on. You're looking at the practicalities of the situation and making sure everything's in good order. But then for everybody coming along this evening to think about being a marketing leader, you have decided, or your organisation said, but we now want you to step into the leadership space and be a leader too. But I realised something many years ago, and partly it was working with Gus O'Donnell, head of the civil service, one of the best leaders I've come across, and I'm thinking, crikey, I'm noticing something about him, and it had me pause and realise but it was the same case for everybody I could think of, which is that rather than staying in leader space for as much as we would like, I was seeing that everybody was coming back into here and here more than they wanted to, and more than their organisation wanted them to. This is not to say at times, everybody in the room, we've got to go into operator manager, perhaps to get something done in the short term. But I've yet to find the human who stays out of it as much as they want to and as much as they can. So in a minute, I'm going to ask you to chat in pairs about this and just look at, well, what's your balance here? And to what extent might you be snagged in operator manager? Because I do come across some people who go back into operator manager to sort something out and are still in there a couple of hours later, or a couple of weeks later, or a lifetime later. I'm afraid so. Now, just before you get on your feet, exercise, move yourselves around and chat in pairs before we hear back from you, I'm looking to at least one of you for a story about either where you've been brilliant at escaping operator manager, or, truthfully, where you've perhaps been caught up there more than you wanted to.
I'll admit to that.
Great, great, very good.
And I think some of it's about timing as well. So, you know, I've been at Visa for about 2 years now, and marketing wasn't in a kind of great shape when I got there. So you kind of do things, you set a strategy, you kind of get going on it. And then you kind of feel really pleased with yourself because all of a sudden people like marketing again, and isn't it great? And you start delivering things. And then, you know, I think that it kind of hit me. We did a new sponsorship, we've got new advertising out, we've changed the way of working. And I started to enjoy the actual delivery. And I was actually, you know, going to pitches, I was going to our Formula E sponsorships, I was getting the team to think about what they should do differently. And I'd completely lost the fact that actually that was the start of the strategy, and what I should be concentrating on is what we're doing over the next 3 years. Especially in a business such as payments at the moment, which, as you saw today, Android Pay launching and Apple Pay is already out there. If you think about the people that are launching those businesses, and not just the big guys, but the entrepreneurs, they're not thinking about the day-to-day stuff. They're actually thinking about how do they crack a market in 3 years' time.
Yeah, superb. So I didn't say, but I'm teed up really nicely here. There are two forces which will keep bringing you back into operator manager. One is external to you, and it's the pace of the world. The world's gone bonkers for a bloke of my years to try and stay up to date with tweeting, emails, text messages, God knows what else. The world is speeding up, and organisations, and for many people, are sending two-handed messages to you. One is, we want you to step forward and be a leader who makes a big difference. Oh, by the way, and make sure you've got those 307 things done by next Tuesday in the full detail that's needed. So there's an external force. But the internal force, if you're willing to look, as Gary's been willing to look, is where on the graph here are we most competent? Are we most confident? Do we feel most safe? Do we perhaps enjoy because we're getting stuff done? If you're willing to look, you might see that you go into operator manager sometimes rather than it being an external force knocking you there.
So my name is Kate Nightingale, and I'm a consumer psychologist. I run my own consultancy.
Okay.
And we're chatting here with Kelly, who I know as well. We are kind of small business owners, you know, one of those kind of entrepreneur evolution type of people. And it's much easier to do what you're saying when you have a big team behind you. It's a little bit harder to do it when you yourself, or you have a bunch of collaborators that you're working with, but not per se teams.
Yes.
And, you know, and we kind of finding it hard to... We can do it when we want to, but sometimes we simply do not have a choice in a sense. So the projects and the clients are actually dictating more whether we are in an operator mode or in a leader mode, in a sense. Whether we actually simply have to deliver and crunch up everything that we do, then think about it, and then actually present it to the client, and then still come up with an innovation on top of that. So we kind of, literally have to press the buttons and switch our mind. What's your thinking on that, or what's your guys' thinking on that?
I've got lots to say on it, but don't let me get in the way. You're leaning forward, Gary, like you're about to go.
No? I think I was just mimicking it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Happens all the time, I tell you. It's so easy.
Well, I'll say a couple of things for you.
Do.
So, first one is be very careful. I'm going to push back a little bit hard here. Be very careful accepting that the world is not giving you time to be in leader mode. As opposed to, I often say, there will be virtually nothing in the world to help you spend time in leader mode. Nothing. So unless you are strong and carve out that time for yourself, nothing else might come along and help you. When I had this conversation with a guy in Boots about 15 years ago, he said, "Oh, I've got it cracked." I said, "Whoa, tell us more." He said, "Straightforward. To get to work to Boots, I need to come off junction 28 of the motorway. I get on at junction 30 and I come down 2 stops. But at junction 29, there's a transport cafe. So every other Friday morning, I set up at exactly the same time and I go into the transport cafe with my pad and a pencil. And I have a full cooked breakfast and I just spend all that time in leader mode. Because I know if I didn't do that and I tried to do it in the office, I'd drown. So I'm purposely pushing you here. If you are not carving out time to sit back and think in leader mode, nothing might come along to help you. So that's the first one. The second one is, if you do want to spend more time in leader mode, there are then implications for who you need around you. And at times, if there's only you, then okay, that can be more challenging, but make sure to take away, this is not just about you, it's also about what you need to create and design around you. Any builds here, guys, or
perspectives?
They're queuing up!
We're so excited. Off you
I
go.
was just explaining, for me, one of the challenges in this space is it is exactly that. It's who's around you and the trust that you have in those people.
Yeah.
So for me, I've just inherited a new team about a year ago, and I'm not fully confident in their capabilities. So I think I know how it should be done. So I lead the team in terms of I have the vision in terms of where I know we need to get to, and I look and I see and I'm concerned they're not doing it. So I go in and I kind of try and explain to them how I would do it. And then I step back and then I look again and I'm like, they're not doing it. So I go back in, and what I'm learning to do, and it's a learning all my life still, and I'll forever learn on it, I'm sure, is people will do things differently. Doesn't mean they can't do it as well, they'll do things differently, but it's really hard sometimes to accept that. Yeah. So I still go back in and I still prompt them, and we're building a relationship because we're getting to know each other, and they're also coming halfway and realising that there's a little bit that they need to do my way, because I am the leader and I need things done in a certain way, but that I'm flexible enough to allow them to find their way to do it. So I think I'm going back in less.
Great.
But if you don't have that trust, I think it's very easy to go back in there.
Lovely. Lovely, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thoughtful about all of this, and these are good anecdotes and stories. But I'm thinking about actually what you really mean by leadership, whether you're an entrepreneur or whether you're in a corporate. And I guess having been in run agencies which are relatively small enterprises, populated by egomaniacs and creative people, which I love, is very different from when you go into a big corporation. And it was a shock, actually, frankly. So my job went from I was running a region with 40 agencies in 20 countries. So I thought I knew how to lead. That was all very straightforward, must be. And then I went from that, and there were 3,500 people in all of those agencies. And then I went to Lloyd's to be a group marketing director, and there were 72,000 people in the company. I said, how many people are in marketing? I said, just how many in HR, how many got marketing? They said 1,150. I said, that'd be daft. There can't be 1,150 marketers. So it was very difficult to find the way to lead. It's very, you know, if it's an agency, it's all about the quality of the idea. So I just used that as a principle, that we'll just sort out what the great idea is, and then everyone will rally around it. So what I'm talking about here is the difference between managing lots of people,
Yes.
and thought leadership,
Excellent.
which I think is critically important in our business.
Excellent. If I could have paid for a link to the next piece, I would have paid for that one. but before, it's almost like it's rehearsed, almost. But if I can just pop back to Anna's story for a second, you're sitting here with Anna, who's been successful so far in her career, but do take away from it, she's not got this cracked. She's learning through practicing. And the reason I say that is that there's way too much written in the leadership industry space, which is complicated and can have you believe you've got to understand lots of complex ideas. I'm from the school of you need a few ideas, it's your practice and your learning that counts. It's exactly the same if you want to get better at the play of the clarinet, or a musical instrument, or sport, or skiing, or golf. You need a bit of guidance up front and a few ideas, then tons of practice. I hear Anna's practicing. In terms of the link, I'll now use Nigel's. So when you're in operator manager, your focus, to do a shorthand version of managing versus leading, your focus in operator manager is the practicalities of the task. And your focus is very much one of looking at the present. What have we got here and how do we move it forward? That's different to leading. Now, my short summary of all this leadership stuff grew out of a conversation I had, and I'll leave out the name, but let's just say this guy became very senior in the civil service, and I'm sitting with him in the cabinet office, and it's dawning on me as the china teacups rattle and the executive biscuits are eaten, that this guy's risen to a very senior level and he knows virtually naught about leading. And I'm sitting there as his leadership coach going, oh dear, what do? I go home, I stand in my study, I look at the 200 books I've read on leadership, I reflect on 15 years of consulting, and I think I've got to go back with 2 pages max on the distillation of everything I know about leading, so he can then use it and do something with it and start building his muscles and up his game very quickly. And that's the moment I realised I'd been suckered by the leadership industry, as many people are, into believing it's really complex stuff and the answer might be in the next book, so make sure you buy that one. And I went the other way, and it dawned on me that everything to do with this leadership stuff, call it however you like, it comes in 3 parts. They've already been mentioned. When you are in leader mode, first of all, you're not focused on the present. You don't think about the present. You park that. We'll come back to that in a while. Your focus is about the future. Where do we want to go? What do we want to build? What's the difference we want to make? Notice in operator manager, though, whenever you're in there, you won't be alive to that future. So there's a job to be done of getting into leader space and being guided by a future. People in this room won't think of a small future. We'll be thinking big futures, which we can't pull off by ourselves, which means the second bit of all this leading stuff is always interact with others so they want to come with you. That's my definition of engage. Interact with other people so they want to come with you. We'll touch on that. We'll explore each of these. And some leaders love to stop there. I've had some big ideas and I can talk about them. But nothing's happened yet. Which is why the third bit of leading is always deliver, implement, execute, make it happen, and so on and so on. What I realised, reflecting back on these 100 talks from top marketeers, is, as I say, they weren't technically brighter or intellectually brighter or a certain personality type, but I tell you what, they were bloody good at future and engage and deliver. They weren't perfect, and they made sure to compliment themselves where they were weak. But they developed themselves over years to have really good future and engage and deliver muscles. Let's walk through each one. We'll start with future, and my betting is there'll be a major queue over here for stories about the future, because these guys are going to be excellent at it, I know. When I came to write the book, which I have to say is excellent, by the way, when I came to write it, I remember the day sitting at the dining table, looking at the white sheet of paper, and thinking, well, what am I going to write? And I thought, I know a really good question to ask of myself, and it's, what are all the common features of the wonderful leaders I've worked with? And I sat there and I thought, that's a great question. And nothing came to mind. So what do? You go and put the kettle on. So you get the kettle on, I'm doing the toast, and it's like, whoa, hang on a second. There is one common feature of all the top leaders I have worked with. And that feature you all have had alive with you, or it's there today. What I realised is that when I'm looking over at somebody in leader mode who's making stuff happen, the phrase I use is that I'm seeing somebody who is up to something. There is something they want to create in the future, make happen and build, and crucially, whatever it is strongly linked to what they care about. And the reason I add that piece is that somebody once said, when learning to ride a bike, failure is not falling off the bike, failure is not getting back on the bike. Now, as soon as you step forward into leader mode, you are by definition trying to create something that doesn't exist and is different from the present. You are guaranteed from then on to have upsets, disappointments, people letting you down, barriers galore and so on, which might knock you off your bike. Why would I put money on you getting back on your bike? It's because what you are up to, what you want to build, is connected to what you care about. So if I was meeting you and becoming your coach, by the time after we'd said hello and so on, the very first question I ask, which comes out of left field for so many people, is don't tell me about your strategy or your business. Tell me, please, what is it you care about? Because unless your leading comes from there and is strongly connected to it, at some point you'll fall off the bike and you won't get back on. Now, what I noticed about the marketing directors in this future space is just energizing to be around, and we're going to hear a couple of stories, I think, quite soon. These guys were thinking big. They allowed themselves to think big in the future space. And they weren't looking at how can we pull off a great campaign or have a great marketing department. No. They were thinking, how can I shape the future of my organization, if not the industry? And notice I use the phrase, they allowed themselves to think big. Some of us are not great at letting ourselves do that. But if you want to be great in the marketing leadership space, you'll be strong in future and you'll think big, which will tee somebody up superbly.
I can. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Can it?
Yeah.
So for us, this is, for me, it's really easy, this, because what you mentioned then, I'm absolutely passionate about the brand I work for.
Yeah.
And it's an entertainment space, and it's kids and families, and I'm a mum, and my number one priority is my family. So ultimately, I'm really fortunate that what I do, I absolutely bloody love. And therefore, I don't switch off. So I'm constantly thinking about what more we can do. So we have a really good team. I have a great team who deliver great campaigns, as you say, great product launches and whatever. And I am inspired by my boss, who I think is an excellent leader, at what's next. What could we do that will make a significant difference? And honestly, I spend my day in the car, my time in bed. I think about this all the time. And one of the things we've been talking about for years is healthy living. So we're a kids and entertainment brand. Kids are sitting down watching our entertainment. We have an obesity problem. How the hell can we, as a brand, do something really positive in this space so that through our brands, we actually make a difference to kids' lives, because it is a massive problem out there. So we've been working on it for a few years. We're not even launched it yet, and we will launch it soon. And it's going to take a long time for us to get up and running, because, my God, it's not an easy problem to solve. Childhood obesity is a global problem. We're an entertainment organisation. There are some challenges, because we are obviously encouraging some sedentary activity as well. We have theme parks business, which is a treats business, and there's lots of all sorts of... So it's not an easy challenge, but I'm absolutely determined that we will find a solution that will help, not solve, an obesity problem. In exactly the same light, another initiative that we're really launching now is about learning, and we touched on it earlier, but how can we make kids want to learn? It's a problem. They hate it. Doing their homework, I know it with my kids. So a lot of it is I look at what's going on and I think, how can I find a solution to make that problem go away? And this is earlier than the Healthy Living Programme, but it's like, how on earth can we use our IPs, our brands, to encourage kids to learn about whether it is maths or filmmaking or drawing or English, different languages, because we have the ability to communicate to kids all around the world in different languages. So, and my boss is telling me that he wants to know what's next. Not what's next this year, because we've got good teams, we'll nail that. But like, what's the next big thing? So for me, it comes from just being absolutely passionate about the brand I work for, but also about there being so many challenges out there. I need to help make a difference.
Superb.
So just a couple of examples.
Superb, great stuff. Gary, I think wants to wade in.
Well, I mean, it's great that when you're working in an industry which is about kids and families and theme parks and things like that. A lot of us don't.
Yeah,
So we have to. But I think that there are real parallels, and those parallels are, if you really kind of are passionate about the industry you work in. And let's be honest, payments are not always the sexiest industry in the world. But you should be passionate about it, and you should sort of understand it. And I used to be at Barclaycard, and I kind of, quite some time ago, could see that the future of payments was going to be very digital, obviously. I knew that one day Google would be in payments and Apple would be in payments, etc., etc. And I sat at Barclaycard, and we had kind of a weird relationship with Visa, because I couldn't work out whether they were sort of advertising against me, even though I was a client, and I didn't really know what role Visa sort of played. And I had the great opportunity of then going to Visa and kind of going, right, I'm going to sort this out. I'm going to kind of sort this out once and for all. And actually, rather than thinking about, brand positioning, it was actually, let's sort out what Visa is here to do. What is our vision for Visa? And how does that relate to the rest of the payments world, whether it be banks or merchants or whatever? And we came up with a very sort of simple kind of one line, which is Visa, our vision is to be the beating heart of payments. And that was a kind of a huge step for an organisation that couldn't quite work out what it was there to do. All of a sudden, it was pretty clear. We're not there to take the role of a bank. We're not there. We're that kind of pipe that connects all of those things, something that's always on, ever present, something that keeps the whole system working. And it's amazing how then I had people in the processing division, the people that sit in a dark room keeping the machine going, coming up and going, I can see my job in this. Very simple.
Excellent, excellent.
I think actually going into a large organisation, as I described earlier on, and having some success with it, and then that organisation became part of an extraordinary kind of a change in people's attitudes, and that was banks. Banks were being blamed for the crash, 2008. Everything's going pear-shaped, and whose fault is it? It's the banks. And and I thought, they're quite right. It is their problem. The sense of entitlement that big banks had was pretty nauseating, actually. And no contrition, just a constant bantering about how they put the customer at the centre of everything they do, when clearly they weren't, and they were being greedy. And so I left there, and I went to Virgin. And I went to Virgin for an interesting reason. I'll try not to make this too long, but I went there because I like the idea of challenging. And I do quite like challenging. And to be a challenger, you need an enemy. So it's always good, important. It's very important. And that's very galvanizing. It's very exciting. So the enemy, when I was at Virgin Media, was Sky. And they don't get bigger than that. They spend £1.3 billion every year on marketing. Did you know that? They do. And I thought, well, that's a proper enemy. And I've got the perfect brand to do something with it, because Richard, you know, he likes a bit of a challenge. And so that whole idea of going in and actually challenging the status quo was highly motivating to me. And I was quite good at motivating other people to do that too. So I found that very exciting. So I think having an enemy is good. And if you haven't got one, it's quite good to create one, because it makes it clear what you're trying to achieve. So when I then got a call to say, would you like to come back into banking? I said, no. And then Paul, who's the CEO, said, yes, but we can create the bank in the way that we think we should, i.e. we can do it right this time. And I said, well, we're going to go public, we're going to do an IPO. He said, yep. I said, wow, okay, let's do this. And so that's what drew me, the challenge of it, but also the fact that I knew there was an enemy, which isn't personal, by the way. It's just because people generally like the people who work in banks. They just don't like the banks. So I thought, well, there's an interesting insight. I can do something with that. I've got an enemy. We can create this thing from scratch. It's the biggest startup in the world. Got 5 million customers and 20 billion quid. We could do something with this. But it was a fantastic opportunity with a clear enemy, and I think that helped.
Superb. So, quite superbly, I talked about people who are up to something. Can you get a sense there are 3 people here up to something? You can see it in the animation, the energy, the feel, and so on. But I don't want that space to be exclusive to them. I want to invite you into that space. I'm going to ask you to stand up in a minute and do some advanced leadership work. Because you didn't know you were coming along tonight to talk about what you really care about. But I'm throwing you into the 16'6" without the water wings. I'm going to offer 2 questions to you. Have a go at one or the other. One is, what is it you care about, which can then be the platform for whatever it is you want to be up to? Or the second question is, if you could have it any way at all, what would you be up to at work or in life? Notice the first phrase, if you could have it any way at all. Because I want to help you think big and bold just in this next few minutes. And the beauty of the conversation you're going to have is that nobody's going to take any notes and nobody's going to hold you to what you say. So just for a couple of minutes, you can really have a go at it. Now, when I ask you to get the roving mic and give us some feedback, I'm actually less interested in the content of what you're saying, but more interested in, well, what did you notice about you either before you started or during or after, in terms of how it felt, what your energy was like, what you noticed about the interaction? Okay, that's the preamble over. Either what is it you care about, or if you could have it any way at all, what would you be up to, either in work or in life? Stand up and go. I'll shout when it's halfway through, so you've got a sense of time. Go, go, go. I know it's difficult at times, because I learned many years ago, isn't it fantastic when you're talking about yourself? If I didn't know that, I got it when a friend Peter, I started on Head & Shoulders, he started on Crest 41 years ago. I was with him in California 2 weeks ago. 40 years later, he rang me one day from New York. He said, Steve, he said, I've just been for an interview. I've been in a room with 3 psychotherapists for 6 hours. He said, it was fantastic. Nobody's listened to me for that long before. Interesting. So, we've got some roving mics. What did you get from that? What did you notice? How did it feel? What did you notice about the energy or your interaction? Or if you really want to, you can talk about what your partner was like if you want the easy way out. Let's hear back from some of you, please. Thanks, great.
My name's Leslie. I work for a company called Koyo.
Hello, Leslie. Hi.
Hi, and I actually felt like we were sharing a secret with each other.
Oh, I've not heard this one. Tell me more.
Actually, it's not something we've revealed as common practice,
Aha.
and that we were sharing something that was quite deep-rooted.
Yeah, fascinating. So we've got one answer to the question I was going to ask you anyway, which is how you've just been speaking. When was the last time you talked that way at work? For some, it's like, well, for some people, it's like, I don't have answers to the questions. That's fine, but at least I prompted you, I can leave them with you. For some, it's like, well, I didn't have answers when I started, but I found someone I got going. And then for others, it's like, no, I had some answers, but I haven't necessarily spoken that way before. All absolutely fine, because you can build all this with practice. Somebody else? Yeah, just here, please. Great, thanks.
Hi, my name is Giles.
Hi, Giles.
I'm Global Marketing Director for a hair care brand, John Frieda, so loving the Head and Shoulders stories.
Okay.
And I guess one of the things I realised when we were chatting was I actually really do care about what I do. And I think it's almost linked to the previous topic around the kind of the operator side of things. I think you really forget it. And I see from all of the experts on the panel, you know, really, whether this is true or not, I don't know, but it's almost as though you are consciously and subconsciously aware of that you care, you know, and I think that's probably demonstrated, you know, in the results that you achieve in your organizations. And you know, working for, you know, a shampoo company essentially, you know, what I care about is I care about making people feel better, and it sounds like such a cliche when you see it, when you talk about it like that, but actually it's possible to do that, to think about that. And I'm just, you know, I think it's really heightened my sensitivity to remembering that, and you know, I directly and indirectly manage a lot of people as well, and ensuring that is encouraged and nurtured within the way that we talk and the way that we operate together. So,
really good. Yeah. Really good. Very nice. Good. Perhaps one more. There's another one. No. Okay. Okay. We're fine for time. So that's a little piece on future. Okay. I'd say this particularly to marketeers, might say it a little bit less to a bunch of Scottish auditors, but to marketeers I'd say you've got to be great in the future space to be a real success in marketing. You will be great in the future space if you can step in and stay in for long in your leader mode, where you keep parking the present and keep going to what next and where do we want to be. But the reason I do the operator manager leader bit first is to flag up to you that the world and yourself can take you away from your leader mode, and therefore take you away from being in touch with what you care about, and it be an energizing force for you. That's what you're looking for in the future space. Now, having ideas of the future is only a piece of the journey, because now, if you've got these ideas, you want to build them with others and bring them with you. And it was fascinating listening to some of the best stories from the top marketing directors about this whole engage piece. Because the days have gone, and I got this moment many years ago when I, as a marketing guy many years ago, would focus on what's the ad. I worked on Fairy Liquid for a while as well. What's the TV ad we're going to make on Fairy Liquid, and what are the TVRs, I seem to remember was the phrase, that we're going to put behind it. And my view of what's involved in marketing changed the day I was working for First Direct in my current capacity as leadership coach and expert and so on, and I go to an aircraft hangar in Leeds. That's where First Direct is. And it's just packed out with people on the phone. And I realised during the day, while I'm doing the leadershipy stuff, blimey, if I was marketing director here, that lady answering the phone is my brand. So as a marketing guy, and I'm sure you know all this, take it for granted, but it was quite a moment for me to pull off the future you want now in organisations. Very probably involves you being a superb engager of people in all sorts of other departments I wouldn't have thought of on Fairy Liquid 40 odd years ago. So you've got to be a walking, engaging machine. just notice, as I pause, I say this, before we hear, I'm sure, some great stories on this as well, just notice to what extent you have at the front of your head, I'm walking in today, I'm walking into a meeting, I'm walking into a situation, who do I want to engage? Not what do I want to get done. You'll have your to-do list, but who do I want to engage? Who do I want to build a relationship with? Who do I consciously want to build a sense of partnership with? It's in your head, but probably at the back. I'm suggesting move it forward and have it be a conscious practice, which I'll bet there's a good story or two here about soon. Who's kicking us off?
Yeah,
Nigel's going.
I'll
Great.
happily do that. I think those of you who've talked to me before will know that I have a sort of a phrase that has informed how I operate, and that is that the brand is a customer experience, and that's all it is, and that's everything that it is. So if a brand is a customer experience, then you're looking at it through the eyes of the people who are receiving it, not through what I want to tell them. And so that's how I try and think. And in order to do something where you've got an enemy in a big hated category, the most important thing to have is a kind of sense of purpose about what it is you're trying to achieve, and some values that are admirable in some way or other. So when we were thinking about how to create a brand from nothing, we wanted it to be purposeful. We wanted it to have a clear idea of what it was that would be something good. So a force for good in banking, that's a shocking notion, but we thought we would be. And then we thought we'd inform it with values that mattered to people. So thinking about it like that, it then becomes a cause. It's something that people believe in. You might believe in shampoos or bringing entertainment to children, all of which are admirable things. Nothing wrong with that at all. And it actually then it informs how you operate, because you can be engaging because it's what people want to hear from you. They don't want to hear about the slogan or how good you are. They want to learn about why it's good for them. And that's a very different route through, and that's how I try to operate.
Excellent.
So we did one thing that, because you've got to actually create behaviours in your own people. And that's easy if you're doing a startup from, with 3 people in a room, because they can all believe in the same thing and all operate in the same way. But when you've inherited 8,500 people who came from the big beast, then you have to say, well, why are they going to think differently? Why would you do that? So we spent a lot of time thinking, well, what would motivate them to think differently and think that the customer experience mattered much more than anything else? And we thought, I know, we'll look at people who aren't in banking because they're much better at it, like John Lewis. And they'd make everyone a partner. Okay, well, we'll make everyone a partner. So we did. We made everyone a partner at the IPO. And it didn't matter. We gave them some shares and we gave them a certificate and a badge and said, your skin's in the game too. Your future is going to be good because we're going to succeed if we do it together. And that sense of partnership has been very powerful. And that's about engaging your own people as well as the customers.
Beautiful. And what I take from that, and I'd encourage you in, there wasn't just let's engage you in a new idea, it's we want to engage you in some new behaviours. Be bold as marketeers, looking for new behaviours as well as consented agreement around the rest of the organisation. Is one of you going to kind of add one?
Yeah, so just to pick up on a couple of smaller points. So first of all, if you're in a service business, you've got to make the chief operating officer your best friend, because at the end of the day, picking up Nigel's point, that promise is delivered by the thousands of people either in the call centre, at the end of the phone, or whatever. So, and you're there not to tell them what to do or how your brand lives in their space. Your role is to encourage them to think about how they can deliver that. So you become the consultant. And I think that was one of the big lessons that I sort of learned working in a big organisation, because if you try and tell those people what to do, they don't, why would they? What's in it for them?
Yeah.
Rather than You are a consultant to make their world a better place.
Good.
And I think that's a big lesson.
Good. So what that brings alive is I'm still staggered how many offices I walk into of senior leaders who haven't got this engage idea, which Gary clearly has there, because they're still in the old world of what I need to do is talk at people and present at them and be on transmit. And if I do that well, all will be fine and they'll then go away and behave as I'd like. Engage is a different interaction. It's a relationship building, it's a togetherness building, it's a common ground building, as opposed to I need to be a really good transmitter. Try and carry that in your head. Do you want to add something?
Well, the only thing that I wanted to add that I think is really important is that we don't, marketing is just one component of who the Walt Disney Company is, and what we try and do in marketing is not be marketing. Let everyone be marketing. So we've just done a project over the last 12 months on the brand and how do we make the brand be ever more desirable, because we can't rest on our laurels. And we included everybody, like facilities, HR, finance, everybody. The guys in the canteen, we had workshops, and honestly, it was absolutely fantastic because they had some of the best ideas about how to bring the brand to life. They'd never been asked before to contribute. Their names were checked. We had a big forum with 2,000 employees where we shared the ideas, and it was, you know, Lucy, who's on the reception, she was in the video, you know, giving her idea, and they loved it, absolutely loved it. So it's also marketing. Anyone can do marketing. So let them. Yeah. And don't try and own it.
Wonderful. If I only had one idea, if you said, okay, what's your biggest idea, Steve, on how to make engage happen? You just heard a mini case study there. My answer would be invite people in to co-invent with you. Encourage co-invention, co-design. Let's create it together. You'll have engagement as quick as that. Okay. The other piece on engage I'll just tuck in for you, because some of you might be in the wrong place here. You might be speaking the wrong language. It was just fascinating watching years of the participants on the programme arriving with their language from the land of marketing. And what they kept on hearing, stories and stories and stories from top players around from the top players, was they didn't talk marketing speak. They talked consumer speak or business speak. They are the two languages I kept on hearing being used by the people who pulled it off. You didn't arrive with marketing speak when you were talking to the receptionist and this, that and the other. It was about our customers, our consumers, who do we want it to be. In the boardroom and those places, you've got to be able to talk finance and business. If you're full of marketing speak, I'd be really careful about when and where you use it, if at all.
The best example of that is if you get media trained, which I'm sure some people have, and you start talking, they do a mock interview and you're like, oh, the franchise, or and the guys, they're going, what? It means nothing. It means nothing to someone that's in the car listening to that interview. And it's hard to get out of that language, but we try.
So you've had some big ideas in future. You've flexed those muscles and you can build them over time through practice. Secondly, you've been out there engaging, thinking much wider and bringing yourself with the right language and as a person rather than a figurehead and all that jazz. Thirdly then, you've got to get on and deliver. And the two things that popped out when I listened to these marketeers about deliver, the first one is a number of the marketeers were in organisations where there was sort of suspicion and doubt and questions about you marketing people, because all you do is spend our money, don't you? That's all you do. So to be really good in deliver, I kept on hearing stories about people were smart at getting some early victories and early symbols and early wins, which would have people going, oh, this might actually work. So that's one piece I'd point you towards. But the second one was the scale of ambition that people like this take on. It's no use having yourself as the one leader and everybody else be a decent follower. So the second big theme in the deliver space was look to develop others as leaders as well. And that is different to develop others as good quality followers. So there's a real emphasis on develop your people, develop the teams to make deliver happen. We're running short of time-ish, but we've definitely got a good deliver story
Can I-
here somewhere.
sorry.
Yeah,
So-
yeah,
so-
please do.
So picking up on the delivery point, and I think it's actually even more vital if you're at the same time, if you're trying to create this vision of the future, which to some people will still, you know, they'll kind of be looking at it going, am I really there or not? So the delivery part is really important. And actually a really simple thing that I did at Visa was concentrate our efforts on where it was important to our sales teams and the people that talk to our clients. Because at the end of the day, that's the people that were the most, you know, sort of suspicious about what marketing did. So the first thing I did, we had a box at the O2, yeah, where we took all clients. It was awful. I mean, there wasn't, you know, you wouldn't take anyone in there. So the first thing we did was just refurbished it for them. Didn't tell them I was doing it, just refurbished it. So they turn up one day, they're taking clients and they go, wow, all of a sudden they've got a nice experience for their clients. Very simple, but the effect it had.
Yeah, and do you know what? When I've been learning and practicing, early wins and early victories I'd heard about, and I just sort of played them down. But over the years, I've heard so many stories like this. It opened doors. It had people want you to succeed rather than I'll be a resistor, and so on and so on. So, we've managed to probably get a quart into a pint pot in terms of what are the key aspects of you being a bolder marketing leader. And I'm leaving the piece on that note of this is not about a theory, this is not about just a manifesto, it's about how you can grow into that manifesto, celebrate the muscles that you've already got and feel naturally strong at, and identify those other muscles. You're going to practice a bit more, you're going to do it a bit more consciously.
Thank you all again, guys. And now please enjoy a drink.